Good evening. I'd like to call to order March 3rd Board of Commissioners Work Session. Tonight, in honor of Women's History Month, our first female board president will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner McNaney.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Logan, will you do a roll call?
Catherine Carter, President.
Here.
Rebecca Moody, Vice President.
Here.
Denise Hall, Commissioner.
Here.
Liz McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Gregory Mall, Commissioner.
Here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Nicholas Cross, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police.
Here.
Brian Shapiro, Finance Director. David Conroy, Zoning Officer.
Thank you. Lauren, were there any executive sessions?
The board did meet in executive session earlier this evening to discuss matters of personnel and collective bargaining.
Thank you. At this time, number 5, we're up to public comments. Please state your name and if you're a resident or a non-resident. When you come to the mic, also make sure that a bright green light is lit. Thank you for respecting the 5-minute rule and practicing decorum. Our goal, as always, is to give you the most complete and correct answers to your questions from our staff who are experts in their areas. For that reason, you may have the option of enclosing your email address in the registry if you'd like us to reach out during the week with a full answer to your questions if we cannot answer them here. First up for public comments this evening is Mr. Carl Smith.
Carl Smith, yes, I am a resident. 2 questions. First one I see on the agenda tonight, 1500 Pembroke Parkway is coming up. I just would like some clarity on the next steps. I know the next significant one is the conditional use hearing. So is that what we're waiting for next for this development? That's a question.
Got it. Hit me with your second question.
Second question is unrelated to anything really, I don't know, big. But in our neighborhood, we had it paved. We were in Sugar Valley. Since we've been there about, 30 plus years, it's been paved several times. And this particular time, we were happy to see it done this summer. The problem is the manhole covers were left countersunk about 4 to 6 inches. And it's like potholes everywhere you drive and an obstacle course. Something wasn't done properly. I don't think they milled properly around when they took the pavement down. So I don't know if you're aware of it. I don't know if it happens in other neighborhoods, but I thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Thanks, Carl. I did recently become aware of that,
Oh, you did?
specifically in Sugar Valley, just within the last week. So we're going to
Okay.
be looking into solutions for that second part of
I
your
mean, it's
question.
not a catastrophic issue, but I thought I'd
No,
bring it
no,
up.
it's a very important, it's probably a huge pain every time you drive over one and get.
It's a
like
shame
quick
because it looks so nice until you start driving on it and
Mhm. Yeah.
lose your suspension.
And then on Pembroke Parkway, just for the next steps, so they require conditional use, and the map amendment and land development. Those are like the 3 steps left if they were going to complete, for the board to complete making decision-making. Those are the 3 decision items they would have to decide on.
Mhm.
Our plan is to have those all on the same hearing night. Instead of having like a drawn-out 6-meeting situation, it would be when they come before the board the next time, all of those items will be considered at once.
Do you have any idea of the timeline?
I don't, we're still working through the plans, like we have the staff decide if plans are ready to come to the board, and there's a few issues that we're still making sure the staff are comfortable with before pushing the plan forward to the board.
And then it has to be, I guess, posted publicly so everyone is aware of it.
Correct.
Okay.
All the notice provisions that occur for conditional use, which I think is 30 days.
Yeah, so it'll be advertised twice. The property will be posted. And it'll obviously be listed on the agenda.
You'll see on our agendas an authorization to advertise before there's a consideration of, a month before the consideration of the decision.
Okay, thank you.
Map amendment, conditional use, and land development.
That ends our public comments. I'll now turn the meeting over to,
Linda, you want to speak at item
she
30,
said
right?
number
Got it.
30. I'll now turn the meeting over to Lauren.
It's actually you next week.
Oh, this is next.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did
Sorry.
this okay. Yeah, we do that every
It does
time.
say March
So
10th.
next week, we'll be hosting a public hearing where you will pass it to Lauren at that moment to consider the prohibition of engine brake retarders on certain highways. Lauren's like, I am not prepared. Oh, you were ready? You were good.
Her
Okay,
and I were.
that's good.
Not paying attention to March 10th.
Yes.
Biggest
So March 10th, we'll be considering that, and all the attachments for the hearing are already on the agenda. So anyone interested in that, it is to prohibit brake retarders on sections of Valley Forge Road. David Conroy, you are up to bat at the mic. Sorry, you're up.
As far as planning and zoning over this past month, 1327 East Prospect, really no update on that one. He has been saying he's going to resubmit plans, talked to him a couple times this month, still waiting on those plans. So hoping next week or two we'll see something because he says he's very urgent to get it going. So we'll see what happens. 1500 Pembroke Parkway, we just touched on it. It'll probably be on the agenda in the upcoming months. We're still working through some sewer and landscaping issues as of right now. So the Merck wetlands mitigation waiver of land development, you'll be hearing about that shortly. It's up for consideration. I know they just resubmitted some plans over the last day or two. So just to answer some of our consultants' comments. And as far as the ZHB agenda this month, we have 212 Church Road just coming in to ask for a 2-year extension on their self-storage facility that was approved last year via special exception. And then we also have 767 Hazelwood Drive on the agenda, just asking for a simple side yard setback. I believe they're enclosing their porch in their backyard. So but that's really it for my department for this month. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Nick.
Thanks, Andrew. So for this month, I just wanted to give a couple of updates on some projects that are going on in the town. The first is for the Haynes Run Stream Bank Restoration Project. I've touched on it a bunch over the last few months, but the contractors continue work on that project. They finished up all the clearing of the trees and the brush and things like that. And they continue to grade the stream banks. They started up by the residential side and are working their way down toward the confluence with the Wissahickon Creek. Bank grading is expected to continue into the spring, where they're going to start the plantings, and then they'll be coming back in the fall to do final planting. For the North Wales Trail Crossing, this project's just completely wrapped up. That project was for a pedestrian crossing across North Wales Road for the Green Ribbon Trail. And we just encourage pedestrians that are crossing to utilize those pedestrian push buttons. That's what they're there for. They'll flash for, I can't remember, it's 30 or 60 seconds. And it'll alert approaching cars that there is someone crossing the road. As most people know, it comes down the hill there. A lot of times cars are coming down pretty fast. And we also encourage drivers to adhere to those pedestrian crossing flashers and to adhere to the speed limits on that roadway. So that's all I had tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Nick, I have
Yes.
a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Got lots of questions tonight. Wow.
After you.
For the Northwell Trail Crossing, because it's something new, is there some way that we can notify the public so that they're aware? Maybe they're used to flying on down that hill. Similar to, I just heard recently they're putting up some of those traffic cameras, but they're giving them a 30-day notice to let them know that the camera's going to go up, just so that we know the project is completed, and even to let them know, to remind them to push the buttons and all, things that they're not used to.
We can do a Gazette article for our residents and then try to remember to highlight that in the written newsletter as well. A note for you to remind me to write an article about that. Yeah, thank you.
Nick, I had a question about the stream banks. When we do equipment purchases, we know kind of what the useful life of a dump truck would be. For example, do you have any estimate of if we do the stream bank restorations once they're completed? Do we have an idea, an estimate of how long that would last before it would need to be repaired, or what's the useful life, for lack of a better term, for something like that?
What'd you say?
I'm excited because I know that the PADEP BMP manual,
That is all the correct
BMP manual, that's like so governmental to say that, has timelines of different BMPs and how long their lifespans are.
And I'm pretty sure for this one, the idea is that you would not have to do it again. As long as you're keeping up with the maintenance of the banks, most of the time these plants are supposed to, stay and work on themselves. That's why they're native vegetation, and they enhance the stream banks and strengthen them. And by those stream banks being strengthened, the idea is that the erosion completely washes away, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so the idea is that the water is more gradual as it comes down Haynes Run and makes its way to the Wissahickon Creek. So the erosion is minimized. I mean, this stream bank restoration project is in the makings of hundreds of years, maybe thousands, depending on when Haynes Run, was first created just by, the natural flow of water. So the idea here is that in our lifetimes, we should not have to do this project again.
Please prove that I was right with that manual, because don't
That's correct.
basins have like a 20-year?
Yeah,
20 to
basins
25?
are usually 20 to 25 years, just because, there's sediment buildup in those as it continues to fill up. Yeah. And there's, different outfalls and piping that's associated with those projects. For a stream bank restoration project, it's really just vegetation and grading. So the idea is that there's minimal maintenance that's going to be required moving forward, and that the growth of that vegetation is going to maintain itself, really.
I had about the trail crossing, kind of like what Catherine was saying. I don't use that roadway a lot, but when I have been coming down North Wales Road, heading toward like Morris Road, I do notice those flashing lights right away. Like you see them, and I've also seen them not being used. So I'm glad. Thank you for reminding people to use that. But Sandra, I was wondering, have you gotten any feedback from the township? Has anybody reached out about the lights? Like they've been fine? No,
Oh, yeah.
no problem.
No complaints about it. We haven't heard any complaints. All we've heard is, yay, I can cross that road safely now. But you guys are right to bring it up, because I've also heard they still see people like darting across without pushing the buttons. And even if you think you can make it, I think it's a good idea to push the button and really protect yourself in that crosswalk.
So it's working out well.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people, people were introduced to push buttons at like the intersections with traffic lights. I know a lot of people always thought that they didn't really do very much while they sat there and they just kept pressing the button, nothing happened. So we've seen that at pedestrian, flashing crossings, people don't even realize that when they push the button, something's going to happen immediately. And it's good for people to know that will be happening, and it's there for their safety.
And that's because at a traffic signal, it has to like work with the timing for the signal. Whereas if you're a pedestrian, you have the only signal.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's even safer.
That's why it takes so long to get the permitting for it.
Yeah, that's why it took us 4 years to get the permit. Yeah.
But thank you. That was fun. I got to talk
It's
a
like-
lot more than usual.
Yeah, you really got a lot of opportunity there, Nick. That's good. Okay, next up is for consideration on the 10th are the staff departmental reports, which will be included for the consent agenda.
Sandra, I just wanted to point out on the staff department reports that we do have the wastewater treatment plant report for the first time, I believe.
I think last month.
Last month was
yeah.
the first time, so second time. And it's, if anybody hasn't had a chance to take a look at it, it is extremely thorough as well. Yeah, if you want to take a look at it. Extremely thorough. So any residents at home, take a look at it. It's a lot of information, and we finally have a report that we can get to know what the wastewater treatment facilities are up to.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Also for consent agenda would be the meeting minutes from February 3rd and 10th. Lauren, can I put disposition of records on the consent agenda? Okay. Item 15 will be the township. This is something we do every year. We dispose of township-specific records based on the PA Historical Association Manual for Records Destruction. So just what that means is we have to check every record that we're destroying and make sure it's not something that we have to keep forever or for a prescribed amount of time. So that is what we have done, and what we've prepared for the board is a list of records that qualify and are legal to be destroyed. Back to you, President Carter.
Number 16, we have just, excuse me, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proclamation for Women's History Month. Can I have a second?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any board comments?
I have a comment. Since it's Women's History Month, I'd like to congratulate you, Catherine, for becoming the Montgomery County Community College Board of Trustees Assistant Secretary. So congratulations on that achievement.
Thank you. You have any public comments? Deanna? No, it's all. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 17.
Thank you. So next up, we'll have the approval of a resolution defining the contributions to the police pension plan. So there is a state act that regulates how much the maximum and minimum that we can require police to put as a match into their pension fund. And because our police contract contribution is less than 5%, which is dictated by law, the board has to make a special resolution to establish that rate. It's already in our police contract, but you also need to do a resolution for us to comply with state pension fund regulations. Any questions about that?
Can you say that one more time?
So Act 195, I think it is. I don't know. I can't think of the act. I'm bad at remembering the exact act. But there is an act at the state that prescribes that police can contribute up to 5% of the cost of their pension. So like their portion of the contribution would be 5%. Our police contract prescribes a lower contribution than required by state law, which you are allowed to do. Per our contract, which has already been agreed upon, it was less than the 5%. So we have to pass a specific resolution explaining that. So they know it wasn't just because I decided to make it less, that it's an action of the board.
Thank you.
Also for the consent agenda for next week, we would have the approval of appointments of various individuals to township boards and commissions. There are 4 appointments planned. They are shown on the screen above, and they've been interviewed and are being suggested for decision next week. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Megan, I'll toss it to you for the next section.
Next week, we'll also have the approval of a resolution. Merck is requesting a waiver of land development for a project that they have for their wetland area project. And we actually have Greg Landis here this evening who's going to give a presentation. So they'll be requesting a waiver of land development along with 2 other minor stormwater related waivers.
Good evening. Greg Landis on behalf of Merck. My goal tonight in the next 5 minutes is to use more initials than Sandra did. So, well, there it is. There we go. It's a lot of words. I can make it real simple. Merck has applied for a joint permit with the wetlands relocation, and it's in the form of 2 pieces. One is Chapter 105, which is a water obstruction and encroachment permit with the DEP. And then the second one is the PA State Programmatic General Permit 6 with the Federal Corps of Engineers. All that to say, there's this much paperwork required to go for these. There's 9 different pieces of detail that get put in for that. And what we want to do is remove about a third of an acre, 0.35 acres of current site wetlands in exchange for wetlands that are already in place within the Schuylkill River service area of the Quaker Mitigation Project. And this is a accepted practice where we buy these credits and then we're allowed to, with their approval, fill in ours and then use theirs in exchange for them. The site has 4 small areas of existing wetlands that I'll show you on a map that if removed, give us some flexibility with the site to add additional parking initially and then possible future site development. Merck has also applied for an NPDES permit, see the initials, through MCCD, which is the County Conservation District for these work areas. And what that means is that's a protection for the township and everything we do, because once we qualify for that, that with a grading permit with the township will give you all of the protection that you need to make sure we do it right. Okay, so this is just a shot south looking north of the site. It's actually 431 acres, but I got that wrong, but that's okay. But suffice to say, the areas in question are the little yellow areas that are shown here. Small areas in the west parking lot. There's one down here by Basin 4 and another small one over there. When you add those 2 together, or 4 together, you end up with 0.35 acres of actual work, but disturbance of 2.82 acres to make it all work. That's fill-in pipes and other pieces that have to be done. So the work actually is filling in those areas and then convert those to paved areas. Work would be covered by that NPDES permit, as I mentioned, and work would include BMPs as required, drainage piping and controls to make sure they're done right, reviewed by both the township engineer and by the conservation district. And then we would request a grading permit through the township that details the work as well as what we've told the conservation district. And then those are your 2 pieces that we would follow to get the work done. NPDES permits require weekly inspections to close and then close out by the township and the conservation district before work is done. So I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
You go back to the former
Sure.
picture with the map.
Back to the map. Yes.
So those yellow spots, you're moving them to the red spot?
No. The red spot, the big red spots are our detention basins. That's where the bulk of the water collects. We have 2 major areas of the site where we collect stormwater. There's about a 92 acre area that goes to Basin 2, which is off of South Broad Street. And then the rest, about 130 acres, goes to Basin 4, which is to the south end of the site that goes to the Wissahickon Creek.
Okay, so I don't understand the first page then. Where are you moving it to?
Well, we're going to fill those in, and then the wetlands get replaced through this Quaker area down near the city. It's moved off our campus, and we're given permission to replace them in another location outside the township.
How do you do that?
You buy the credits. You buy the credits for them, and that allows them to administratively replace what we have here.
And Greg, when you buy them, that's through the PADEP,
Yes, through the DEP
Department of Environmental Protection
and reviewed by
program that they have in place.
correct.
I understand that part, but I guess the elementary, I'm just trying to figure out how you take up wetlands and replace it someplace else. Like you're going to dig up and make that area more, they're going to make that area more wetlands over there?
That other area is already overbuilt for wetlands. They're already in place and working. We just get credit to shift. We get permission to shift ours to theirs. And that's through the DEP. It's a
Okay, I don't understand. Never mind, I don't understand.
state,
Oh,
it's
how
a
you can
state
take
program that
land and
allows us to do
Drop it
this.
someplace else. Okay.
You have to have a certain.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can the people on the dais use their microphones? Sorry.
So there has to be a certain acreage worth of wetlands amongst the 2 sites, and they're just reallocating it amongst the 2 sites.
You have
No.
to take care of it anymore? Does Merck have to take care of what they're giving away?
No, that's managed, it's managed by others as we buy the credits to have them. Others manage those,
But they are maintained.
but they are maintained through this Quaker Mitigation Bank.
Essentially, you're buying out of the obligation to maintain the wetlands currently on site.
Correct.
So similar
If
to-
If those are filled in, Greg, do you think your drainage is going to be sufficient to handle the stormwater flow from those two, looks like pretty good sized basins if they're removed or filled in for other purposes?
The big basins remain. Those small areas that represent 15,000 square feet get filled in. We still have to maintain balance of our stormwater management on site. So the basin has to be capable of handling the 100-year storm for what's going to happen in that area. That doesn't change.
Okay. All right, I just thought because they were circled in red, that meant you were moving in.
No, it's the way they did the map. I cut this map out of one of our applications, and what they did is they used this for explaining to the agencies where the areas are and what they are. So what we wanted to show is the capacities we have for large. These basins hold 5.9 million gallons of water. I mean, they're very large, and they show up big on a map the size of this.
Okay, thank you.
So our three waiver requests that we'll ask of you, hopefully for next week's meeting. Waiver of section 168, the subdivision and land development. This type of project is civil in nature and does not really have any buildings or anything else. It's basically grading type work, which is covered by your grading permit. A waiver for section 162.12B1, which is the minimum pipe size of 18 inches. We have examples on the property of pipe sizes for stormwater that are 12 inch and 15. And we know we've modeled it. We have capacity in these pipes already at the smaller size. So we would ask for relief for that. And then the last one is 162.12B11, has to do with the inlet size. Those inlets in that particular example are very large. We're asking to use the PennDOT standard 4-foot by 2-foot inlets that have capacity for these smaller drainage areas. So those are our three waiver requests that we'll be requesting.
Could you send us that modeling to show that the smaller pipe capacity is going to be sufficient?
That's part, yeah, we can.
That's part of what we review. We don't allow those waivers unless they can show the backup that the system that they're designing can handle the capacity. So typically that 18-inch requirement and the 6-foot inlet requirement are when people don't need to show the backup. We just want to, it's kind of like an overabundance of caution, a fail-safe in there, so that when they do have to submit peak rate control stormwater management reports and they can show the backup for it, we're fine with them using smaller pipes and smaller inlets.
And we have an RVE letter that Nick generated on January 30th. We have responded back to that with all of the answers to his comments. Any other questions I may answer?
Thank you, Greg. The board will consider it next
Okay.
week.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next week we'll also have a Merck waiver request for after-hour weekend work for in-ground fire piping, and that will be on Saturdays and Sundays from April 5th to July 6th. I believe that would go on the consent agenda. And then we also have the approval of the final escrow release for 584 West Prospect Avenue. This was a one-lot new construction home. They have finished. Nick has reviewed everything, and that project's closed out. They won't incur any more legal or engineering bills, so we're asking for a release of the remaining funds. We also have another release this was also a one-lot new construction project. This one was a little bit unique because they had to do some more extensive sanitary sewer work, which was dedicated to the township. They did have a 24-month maintenance period, and we were holding $25,000 just to ensure that all of the work that they did held up. It has been inspected by our sanitary sewer department, and they're recommending the release of the $25,000.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions from the board or the public? Okay, moving on to public safety. In the packet, you have a memo. This is kind of a discussion item for the board this evening, unless you all agree with everything that Chief put in his memo. But so about 6 months ago, we decided internally to begin the Township Traffic Safety Committee. It is common in both the police department and my department to get complaints about various traffic safety items. And I'm sorry. Oh, would you mind opening it, Megan? And that's also in addition to the fact that the board authorized the increase in police officers in our staff. So now we actually have dedicated traffic safety officers. So it's really great. In this meeting, it's Megan and I, Chief, his traffic safety officers, our traffic engineer, and our public works department. So we can evaluate these concerns from every angle. Like if we're talking about putting in a sign somewhere, Andy, our traffic engineer, tells us if it's legal or not legal. Like often people will ask for signs for like children at play, but that's not actually an approved sign by PennDOT. So we evaluate all of those items. And at the most recent meeting, there were 2 requests that came out of the meeting. The first was for a right turn only, for the right turn only. This should be called the Chief Duffy right turn only lane, westbound on Sumneytown Pike at Supplee Road. If you're turning into Gwennedale, the right lane quickly becomes like a right turn only, and residents and visitors to the township often like cut across to the other lane. And it's a safety issue for us there, which Chief Duffy works diligently to teach people via tickets and warnings not to do that. And we also have it oversaturated with signs. I think Willard said there were like 6 to 8 signs leading up to that turn lane to say, don't do that. But it's hard to see signs when you're driving. There's so many signs. So one of the recommendations that one of the safety officers recommended was actually printing right turn only on the roadway, which is actually something that was used in my neighborhood recently for a speed limit. Printing it on the roadway, it's like, oh, that's different, easier to see further back, that it's because it is right turn only right up at the light, but printing that further back in the lane to help people know, hey, coming up, you're gonna need to switch lanes. So that's the first one, and it's also a very low cost to implement that. The second is for the school zone at North Wales Road near Pembroke Middle School. Obviously, if you travel in that area at any time, you see lots of kids walking to and from school. And we're just wanting to encourage drivers before they get to that school zone to slow down, and that there is a school zone coming, because it's another area where we require nearly constant enforcement activities to get people to recognize the school zone. So the cost for both these changes, we would need to utilize our traffic engineer to do some applications to the various permitting agencies, and then just implement those items. So they're both signs, which are not, the signs themselves are not expensive. It's generally just the cost of the permitting, and it's also not majorly expensive, but these are changes that will come to the community. So we just wanted to gauge the board's interest. If you are interested, next week, we will just need a motion to authorize Andy to perform those tasks that would be required to make these 2 items happen. And Chief is here if anyone has any questions.
Are these changes that you can do within Upper Gwynedd, or you have to go through PennDOT?
Yeah, I think we might need PennDOT for the painting on the roadway. Yeah, I was just trying to remember from the meeting. Andy knows what we need PennDOT approval for. I think definitely the painting on the roadway, we require PennDOT approval. I don't think the sign will require PennDOT approval for the student crossing, but those are things that Andy will look at for us.
Good answer.
Oh, wow. Are you excited?
It's kind of cool.
Okay.
The other sign's an advisory of students crossing. The school zone, well, back to the lines, we think that would be helpful. On meeting nights, I'm usually out there before the meetings, 2 citations just today. But it's gotten a lot better. And regarding the school zone, talk to Andy about, because most of the students cross at North Wales and Hancock. 1,400 students between Pembroke and Gwynedd Elementary. Not all of them walk, of course, but a lot do. And the school zone actually doesn't cover the intersection. To extend the school zone is really complicated, and that does involve PennDOT. So we try to be very visible there all the time, especially when the elementary school students are crossing. They're on the north side of the intersection. In other words, if you're going towards Montgomeryville, they're on that opposite side of the intersection. So a sign facing the cars that are coming southbound of student crossing, hopefully with the yellow light also, just which would be activated at the same time as the school zones, would be an additional warning. Right now, and even if we get the sign, we usually try to put a police car there with the rear lights on to slow people down as they approach the intersection.
So this doesn't include the signage on the ground like the first.
Correct. No, this would just
The
be a
right
sign
turn
on the
on
side, on the
difference.
right side of the road, yellow diagonal with like an adult and child walking,
All right.
crossing, flashing like adult.
Okay.
I had a question, and I have to think about this more too, but I need more information. Is there any correlation between the new item number 30 for the power line trail? So that's going to be crossing North Wales Road, but
At Mill Road.
at Mill Road.
It's like here, and we're talking about up here.
Can there be any, I mean, because I know, if I recall correctly, somebody did ask about like a warning for those people
Oh,
crossing.
yes, the crossing that would be done as part of that trail will be a flashing signalized crossing similar to at North Wales Road. Or, sorry, it is North Wales Road in
Yeah,
both cases,
At the hill.
but I meant at Moyer Boulevard.
And then you would go through the school zone, like if you're heading in toward Montgomeryville, go through the school zone, and these signs would be closer to the intersection.
But they're on Hancock, right?
They're on Hancock.
No,
No.
they're at North Wales Road.
Correct, on North Wales Road.
Okay. All right, because that's a
Oh,
lot
yes,
going
the
on
trail,
right in
like, I
there.
think I know what you're asking. The trail crossing will hopefully also slow traffic because it's also outside of this. It might be inside the school zone. It's close to the beginning of, or the end of. It's after, yeah. So it will also slow people down and say, like, there's flashing, people are crossing here. It'll be one slow down area and then you'll hit another.
That's good then.
Well, yeah, it's a
People
heavily
slow down.
traveled
Yeah.
pedestrian area. Yeah.
And this, we have a crossing at that intersection. If there's not a crossing guard, there's a police officer, but it's the speed of the vehicles coming southbound that we're trying to catch the attention. Going northbound, the school and the traffic coming from it actually kind of naturally slowed down as far as to some extent getting to the intersection.
Thank you.
For the, if this is approved to move forward with at least the studies and everything, is Andy going to looking at potentially putting signs on Hancock, at least on the school side either? Does that make sense?
The school zone on Hancock's are totally separate, and students are generally not crossing on Hancock, or very, very few, and if they do, they're kind of doing it on their own.
That's not where the problem area is.
Hard to control kids, that's why we're
Okay.
trying to slip people down, right? But yeah, Hancock's a different deal, and the school on the same side of the way they come up to the intersection is the same side of the school, so they're not crossing.
Okay.
Also, they're younger, like the
Yeah.
elementary kids are not as much walking as the
We-
middle school
We
kids.
added a crossing guard, although it's not really required, but we felt it was important enough to add on Maryland and Hancock. It's a T intersection because they're crossing they're on Hancock, coming up the sidewalk. They want to cross over cross Maryland, continue on the sidewalk. As we continue to watch traffic over the years, we decided to add a crossing guard position at that location because there are smaller kids, especially, and a lot of parents are turning into that road to get into the car line to go to the school. So there's a lot going on for about an hour every day.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions on that item? No. Okay. Moving on to Public Works, Parks, and Recreation, I will pass it back to you, President Carter, for item number 24.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the bid for equipment rental and labor for various stormwater projects. Can I have a second?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any board comments? Any public comments? Number 24. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, item 25 is going to be a consent item for payment to Land Tech Enterprises for the first payment for the Hands Run project. And there's nothing really special on that action. It's just a normal payment request. Item 26 is approval of a change order. It's a good change order, reducing the contract price. We love those, of $1,917 for the North Wales Trail Crossing project. Number 27 is approval of a payment to Armor. So we're doing a change order, reducing the full contract price, and then issuing the final payment on those two actions. Item 20, and I think these are all good for the consent agenda. Okay. Item 28 would also be a consent agenda item, and it is a payment to NJS Concrete for the work on Phase 1 of West Prospect Avenue drainage project.
You're saying 25 to 28 or on the consent?
Consent, yes.
Thank you.
And then we're also looking for authorization to advertise the bid for Phase 2 of the West Prospect Avenue drainage area. This is the section of the township that's kind of close to the railroad. A lot of the drainage goes all towards the railroad tracks, which we can't obviously put like a basin where there's railroad tracks. So we're trying to figure out other ways to solve the stormwater issues there on West Prospect, Phase 2, and it was budgeted. Any questions on that? Okay. Commissioner President Carter, I will pass it back to you for.
Okay, this is the question that Linda Smith, you want to come up?
Hi, I'm Linda Smith. I'm resident. I just have a question about the trails. I know you've been talking about it for a long time, and I was just wondering how much dialogue there's been with the abutting property owners. I mean, has there been specific meetings to ask them about their comments or their questions? And I know this was discussed years ago, and there was not a positive response to this. And I'm assuming that this trail is it's starting and is going to start coming up toward the power lines up here.
So sure, let me start with your question about like what we've done with resident engagement. We sent letters to every single property owner that abuts the trail line and offered in-person meetings. So Sarah, I personally and Sarah Priebus, our Park and Rec director, met with over 30 residents that live along the trail. And that was the whole trail, like the whole power line trail all the way through the township. We sent letters to every single property owner that abuts an area where the trail would be constructed. We also did 2 feasibility studies, which included tons of public outreach at all of our events. In public meetings, we had several public meetings about the power line trail feasibility study. So it's been quite extensively discussed with residents. And it's not accurate to say that residents don't support the trail or that there was like a big issue about it. There were sections of the trail for the Liberty Bell Trail that were more negatively or vehemently opposed by residents, and we changed the alignment of that trail to meet the resident concerns. In the case of the power line trail, there is a section of the trail that residents aren't a huge fan of, and that is up more towards Morris. No, what is the other section? And Muhlenberg Road.
That's
like
what
that
I'm.
section
That's what
from
I'm speaking of,
Muhlenberg.
because that's in my neighborhood, and I've
Yes,
heard people
that
that aren't
section,
happy
there
about
are
that.
lots of
so.
people that don't like that. I
Right.
learned that through my firsthand
Okay.
meetings with the residents.
Mhm.
And as part of our C-PROS plan, which recently was adopted by the board, we looked at alternatives to the trail, and that's why we proposed Sharrows on Garfield. So we sort of proposed, which I don't know the whole route off the top of my head, but you can look at the C-PROS. We basically proposed Sharrows on-road shared use markings. So it's like a person on a bicycle on the road to
Right.
alert people to slow down for people that might be biking in that area as an alternative to that trail in that section for now.
Okay.
This section that we're specifically applying for is Mill Road,
Mhm.
Pembroke Middle School. So it's
Okay.
not in that. We're starting with the sections that are not posed by residents, mainly because it's easier to consider a trail and whether you're for it or against it if there's actually a connection to something. So if I personally lived on Muhlenberg and the whole trail was built, and if I got on it, I could get to the power line or to like Parkside Place, I could get to Lansdale, I could get to North Wales, I could get to the 202 Parkway Trail, a lot more enticing or something that you might be interested in compared to a trail that's just in your neighborhood that doesn't.
Right. And I mean, I think trails are great, but if they're right behind your house, you're just a little bit, I don't know, a little nervous about who's back there. So
Yeah, and as part of that, we shared tons of information with those residents about real estate appraisals and how trails affect your home, because that's a concern that a lot of residents have. And data has shown that like a well-constructed trail with the appropriate buffer increases your property value. It doesn't decrease it. So we're not interested. The current board, as are sitting here today, have not directed me to like shove a trail down residents. If residents aren't really interested in it, there's plenty of other places that we can build trail where residents
okay,
are more.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve Resolution 07-2.
Another public.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Oh, no, it's a resident near this section of trail.
And whose birthday is today?
Mark Connolly.
Pisces, yeah. Mine's
you.
yesterday.
Mark Connolly, 11 Carney Drive, which Carney Drive intersects with Mill Road. So where exactly, this segment, where on Mill Road does it start? Does it start exactly at the intersection with Hancock, or does it start a little bit further down?
Actually, it starts at the intersection with Dickerson, and it's on the Arbor Court side, like not on the Gwynedd Club side, on the, that wide swath which Pico
Yeah, the
maintains.
Pico,
It's
yeah.
in there. Yep.
Okay. All right, good, because I was going to ask the other question is, I was thinking it was going to be on the other side, and then like, are you going to be able to see it if you're trying to turn left out of there? But that makes sense. So I am definitely in favor of this. I think that having more trail connections in our part of the township would be great. I've always mentioned that, our part of the township is kind of cut off from the rest of the township because of where North Wales is located. So anything that connects us to the rest of the township is great. And obviously from a safety perspective, students and other adults crossing the street at that intersection is always kind of tricky. And I know I've almost hit people, driving, almost hit someone in this room, sorry, Pat, crossing. So I definitely think from a safety perspective, having those flashing lights there would be great. So.
Thanks. And, it's funny because regarding both of your questions, literally, we have like 10 miles of trail to construct in Upper Gwynedd. We're trying to start with the easiest sections first, and not just easiest based on resident opinion, but one of the hardest places for this trail is going to be figuring out how to get from Mill and Dickerson to anywhere else, because we have to deal with the railroad crossing. So that's still up for debate, and we're not sure how we're going to do that, but we're trying. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, back to you.
Number 30, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 07-2025, the Monco 2040 grant for the construction of the Power Line Trail. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any board comments? Any other public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, up next is the approval of a purchase of a new utility vehicle for the Park and Rec Department. This item, at budget time, we were first thinking about purchasing a used vehicle, but after further research on procurement of such used vehicle, it was decided that it would be best to go with a new truck instead. That will increase the budget for this piece of equipment from $45,000 to $63,500. Sarah has already raised about $10,000 in early year fundraising, which could be applied to this purchase, but also it's a capital item. Our capital fund is well funded, and we don't have concerns about that minor change in price. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. Moving on, we have the wastewater department. They're making a ton of purchases as usual and doing lots of projects. So the first is for an air compressor from Pro Compressor in the amount of $5,000 as part of our PAC chem feed system that removes phosphorus from the wastewater outflow. We also have purchases for, all of these are budgeted purchases. That was a question last time. Approval of new interior lighting for $64,000, and that's at the wastewater treatment plant, as well as street lamps at the wastewater treatment plant. And an approval of a purchase for WAS and RAS pumps. It's a revision to the original quote. So I'm going to be excited when I stop hearing that prices have skyrocketed and changed. But unfortunately, we are hearing that over and over again with many of our purchases still. So this is really just a revision to the approved amount. It's a $12,000, well, actually nearly $13,000 increase for the pump package from the time of when we got the quote until now. And lastly, this is a piece of good financial news. The board will be looking to approve the sludge hauling bid to Hydrotech Environmental for a 3-year contract. The good part is the price is better than what we expected. And this is an item that in wastewater, we spend about $500K on hauling sludge every year. So any improvement to what we're paying is a win. It's a reduction of 0.00007 cents. You know, I don't even know how to say this mathematically. 0.0007 cents per gallon cheaper than what our previous bid was. That is exciting news because we expected it to go up, so we're glad it didn't. And I want to credit Dan Ferris, our wastewater director, and our very own Deanna Logan, who helped completely revise the bid package to hopefully make it something that did come out at a better price range, because it is one of those costs that we have to do it. We have to haul sludge. What way can we make it better? So this is a culture of excellence item to make it a 3-year term on the contract instead of a 2-year term, and made a couple of changes to the requirements that the bidder has to provide. So resulted in a cheaper contract.
Sandra, I have a question. I'm sorry, 35. I wasn't fast enough to get it out.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry, I was on a roll there.
No, that's okay. I see the increase, obviously, for the RAS and WAS pumps. Do we know how long that price, that quote, is good for, or could we anticipate another increase in that before that purchase is complete?
Well, I'll say that with the increase would have to come back to the board if we do see another one. But hopefully it's because the first price was a budgeted price, you know, when it was probably like 3 or 4 months old versus this will just be 1 month old. You're approving something that's newer basically. So hopefully it can hold. But it is a big project where there could be other change orders, but I can't guarantee no more change orders, but I think the price should hold.
Oh, 60 days.
Yeah, 60 days term in the quote. Yeah. Any other questions on those items? Okay, next week you'll also have the open and paid invoices, which we don't yet have, but they'll be on for next week. And that is all I have, unless any.
I had a quick thing. Over the weekend, yesterday, I got some calls from residents over off of Meadowbrook, White Oak, that area, right off of Sunnytown. And they have above ground wires, Pico wires. And there's a lot of properties that have dead trees. And the trees with that wind the other night blew down, some dead trees blew down, caused power outages. When I reached out to some of the people there that, you know, had contacted me, they said some families were going to a hotel. Families have gotten generators. When I got involved, I think there were about 25 houses affected by it. And then that number was going down, but yet the time to get the power back on from Pico kept changing from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. this morning. So I was just wondering, Megan, if you could just remind us about the trees on property like that and any suggestions for residents, because, you know, if the dead tree was not there, then obviously this wouldn't happen. And it seems to happen a lot in that development. So I know we can put a reminder out in like the Gazette and we can send reminders out, but I was wondering what else we could do to help with that issue.
So our tree ordinance just basically states you cannot plant any trees within the public right-of-way. There can't be any trees or shrubs or anything planted. We don't necessarily have an ordinance if you have like a dead or dying tree. Typically what we've done in the past, if we get a complaint from a resident, is we'll send like a courtesy letter to whoever owns that tree and just say, put them on alert that there is a tree that is dead or dying. However, we don't have any like enforcement capabilities. We have told residents that they can contact their insurance company. And sometimes insurance companies will send a letter in case there is then a property claim if that tree does fall and like hit somebody's either house or shed or something. It either was going to be in last week's newsletter or this week's newsletter. We were going to have an article about trimming back your branches, just reminding residents that they shouldn't be encroaching on the public right-of-way or creating any site distance issues as well.
Okay, I just hear that happen so often in that section, and there's not many sections, I don't think, that have the above ground wires, but that development, that little section there does. So, but I'm glad we're going to have a reminder sent out, and we send notices. So I'll follow up with you on that one. All right, thank you, Megan.
Please come up to the microphone. Sorry. Mike, do you mind pushing the button to make that turn on? It'll give you a green light when you push.
It's on now.
Thank you.
So if a tree is in somebody else's property and falls into the neighboring property, whose responsibility is to clean it up?
Lauren, I'm going to let you answer that if you don't mind.
That is between the two neighbors to work out. The township will not get involved in that kind of neighbors.
How about the tree that fell was in county property?
County is.
I'm just excited you didn't say township property. You might be faking it with county, but we'll take it.
If it does involve township property, then obviously that's something the township will get involved in. But a county property, again, is between the county as property owner and whoever the neighboring property is. If there is a hypothetical situation, I would suggest you contact the county.
I figured.
Thank you.
Sorry. It is.
And finally, before we leave, this past Saturday, the Upper Gwynedd Fire Department had their annual banquet. I can't remember everyone who won awards, but they gave out the Fireman of the Year award. They gave out the President's Award and the Chief's Award. So just a quick congratulations to the Upper Gwynedd Fire Department for a wonderful celebration last Friday and for all that was there. They looked wonderful. My favorite part of the evening is their GAG awards. They give out GAG awards for their fellow firefighters, and every year is fun to watch and be a part of that. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was really impressed. This was the first time that I had attended the gala, and I just wanted to thank the fire department, AD, for welcoming us and showing us such great hospitality, and we had a wonderful time. One of the other awards it's a new award this year, honoring our fallen firefighter, Jeff Tomczak. And it was, I forget the name of the award, whether it was the Spirit Award or something.
The Jeff Tomczak Spirit Award.
But it was a pretty powerful referendum on not only his character, but his leadership and what he's brought to the fire department. and what he meant to his colleagues. So that was a pretty powerful moment to be a part of that. So I want to thank them, and thank you, Adi, for the invitation.
Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.